Hello, Joan. I am once again out on a walk, but back in Bellingham this time instead of Nashville. I'm back with my dog instead of just walking solo, which is always a very different experience, walking a dog versus walking alone. And I've just been, it's been interesting the last couple of days. Just really noticing my body in, I don't know if it feels true to say a new way, maybe a deeper, more attentive and attuned way since our conversation with Caroline. I also feel like it has to do with the fact that I flew in on Tuesday, and then I kind of I like an hour after I got back home, we sat down to have that conversation and then all that travel. And I think what it mostly is that I when I'm in Nashville doing these residencies, I am not on screens at all. I minimally use my phone. I generally don't have any social media apps downloaded in my life anymore. I don't really do much on my computer, and I am hardly at all on my phone. And I am in kind of a rural area, and I can hear the creek and the birds, and I don't wear shoes for like 2 straight weeks, and I'm interacting with people directly, and I'm in a sauna every night. I'm just like very connected with my body. And then I get back here, and it's not like a good bad dichotomy. It's just different. It's just difference. I'm in a less rural location, so more sounds, more cars, as you can probably hear right now as I'm on this walk. And I am wearing shoes, although I guess I could just choose not to. That would be awesome. But yeah, the main thing is that my usage, seemingly necessary usage of screens skyrockets when I'm home and doing the work that I predominantly do here. And that's the main thing I've been noticing is just like my body is affected by going from little to no screen usage to a bunch. So I kind of feel like I just this morning and afternoon got to really sort of breathe into and begin to integrate the conversation with Caroline. And I have just been, just all day just holding in my awareness predominantly what she was describing, what you were both describing about what you've seen in your experiences about kind of what starts to happen to bodies as they begin the process of dying, and the veil being thin, kind of as Caroline communicated, like it being in the presence of death is similar to being in the presence of birth, where, there is consciousness, there is spirit, there is the animating life force that enters and then also leaves, and that is different from the container of living matter that temporarily holds that animating life force. And the more I think about death and how I want it to lead me to greater aliveness, the more I think about how I want to be spending more of my time, like literally in my body, doing the things that feel the most good, and increasingly doing things on screens just don't literally feel good. So that's been my predominant noticing of the experience in my body over the last few days. Just the contrast of going from 2 weeks of minimal to no screen usage, then coming back and having this kind of in the span of 3 days, heavy screen usage. And I'm allowing that noticing of the contrast to inform my choices about this weekend, starting with today, but definitely extending into tomorrow and Sunday, making some really specific strategic plans to be outside and reading books, being amongst friends, dancing, going to ecstatic dance, having some people over. So yeah, that's where I've been the last few days and what I've been feeling into in my body. And I'm wondering how you are doing. And I'd love to hear how you are and how your body is. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Hey, Jamie. I thought I'd record my answer back as I go for a walk outside. I'm walking in this woodlot that's near my house. That's just like a lovely little collection, like a little mini forest. And yeah, it's my favorite place, being here with the trees. Yeah, thank you for sharing even just the journey of what you've been going through. And yeah, the contrast of screen time versus not screen time. I appreciate you sharing that with me. I immediately deleted Instagram. Not in a way where I was like, oh no, I'm not doing the right thing. But I was like, yes, that was an invitation for me. So I deleted it. Because I'd been spending a teeny bit more time on it than I had previously. And it's a little pattern that sneaks up on you, isn't it? And so now I'm curious what my experience will be without it on my phone. So thank you for that out of what you shared. And I think for me, the main thing that keeps coming back to me from our conversation with Caroline was the moment when she was describing her and her little one saying, hello, trees, good morning, trees, whatever it was. I just keep and the look on her face, and I'm just picturing her and her little one doing that. And I'm here saying, hello, trees, good morning, trees, to the trees I'm walking through. And just since then, whenever I'd think of it, and it would often happen in moments with my kiddos, which makes sense. And I'd just be like, yeah. Not that I necessarily have the impulse to yell very loudly in those moments, so that's wonderful as well. But just the pure sentiment of yes to life, yes to beauty, yes to nature, which includes us, yes to our bodies, that really brazen out loud yes. And that is one of the invitations and the reminders that come up when we are contemplating and witnessed and in intimate connection with the realities of death, which is clearly going to be a theme of our whole season. But they're so intertwined. How can you not keep saying it in different ways, right? And I just think Good Morning Trees actually is another illustration of what happens to you when you accept your mortality. Is you cannot help but to greet the trees every morning. And so that's what's been staying with me in the conversation. And I've been grateful for it because, the muddiness of looking too much at social media and the muddiness of life and screens and moments of overwork, etc., that can creep up. It was just a really beautiful reminder to settle down into what matters most to me to say yes to, And then interestingly, and I'm not sure exactly how these connect, so I'm just going to say it out loud, and maybe they don't, but in some ways they must. I've recently been interacting with and consuming 2 pieces of media that have a darker tone, as well as one, it feels connected to a recent event that happened that's coming back to mind because we're actually seeing the people that were more intimately impacted by it. So, and it's sort of the theme of early death and, the grief and the tragedy of that. And that sometimes is sort of the harder path to then turn and say good morning trees to. There's a lot more thorny fear and anxiety and guilt maybe and and really terror that comes with the fact that we or people that we love can die prematurely. And so the real life event that happened is someone that I don't think I've met once ever, is like my husband's friend's friend, who's our age, and they died in a car accident alongside one of their very small children, and their spouse and other child survived. Oh, it's heavy just to say it, honestly. Like, those are the sort of like stories you pass around, or the headlines you read, and I think you just feel like, I feel in my body right now, like it's like a stab in the heart and like a stab in the gut. And really this, like, it feels so sharp and heavy to know that has happened. And it happened, right? And we're seeing my husband's friend, who was good friends with this person. Tonight we're having them over along with their kids. And I'm curious of how they may be, in all the different ways that this grief could be showing up for them. And certainly for me, 1 degree removed, but yet still very much connected with the fact that this is something that, like, you have to take a breath before you say it could happen to anyone. And honestly, is like one of my most intense fear flashes is me or someone I love dying in a car accident. And it's a very understandable fear flash because it's one of the most common ways we unexpectedly die ahead of time. And apologies to anyone who maybe this has happened to someone in their family. If you need to step away from the podcast, take care of yourself. I know I'm not going to say anything graphic, but I know just the idea of it can be kind of triggering. And so for me though, like, one of the things is, it's sort of like when my husband went through cancer, right? It's one of these things where the cliches of like, you don't know how much time you have. You don't, like, tomorrow is not guaranteed. And so how do we not let that fear of this happening paralyze us? But when the fear comes, it's not, you can't stop the fear. And if you ignore the fear, that's when it does paralyze you, I think. Instead, like, find ways to hold that fear and honor that fear, and know that that's my body wanting to wake me up to what matters. My body probably needing some love and attention to ground myself in the safety that is currently my reality. There's no actual danger signals directly around me. And then really ask, and like, be unafraid to ask tricky, tough questions about this stuff, right? And what it leads to, and maybe it's just because it's all happening at the same time, so they're all like mishmashing in my brain, but I've also, like, the 2 pieces of media I consumed recently, one is the Hunger Games series, and I'm now reading like the 4th book, which is actually a prequel, which I'd never read before, as well as Francis and I just watched Adolescence on Netflix, which is a 4-part British like TV series, really remarkably done. Every episode is 1 take. It's incredible. But it's, again, very heavy subject matter. Both of these are about children killing other children. Speaking of extremely heavy things. And in both cases, somewhat based on true stories. Obviously, Hunger Games isn't literally based on a true story, but I'm aware that the author came up with the idea when looking at, the youth that are sent to war, as well as reality show culture and some of those things. And Adolescence is inspired by 2 actual cases of the same thing happening, like a young teenage boy killing a young teenage girl. That happened in the UK, and it certainly happens everywhere. They were offered to me in something that's technically entertainment, and so there's sort of a mix of all of those things, including kind of the morbid fascination and interest and curiosity, that's like, that feels like it's been slightly manipulated by these 2 pieces of media. And so, like, talking it through helps me to process it. And at the end of the day, I don't want the message that my body hears from either of those is now I need to be more terrified for my children. And I think if I'd been in a different spot where I hadn't done some more work about just finding my center and my good morning trees and my love and deeping loving relationship for my body, and my knowing that though it would be horrible if anything like any of these things in these books or TV show happened to me or my family, like my love for my body and my body's love for me would not falter even in those circumstances, you know? Because I can, like I was about to say, like if I watched that adolescent show maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, certainly when I was pregnant with my first kiddo and knew he was a boy, I honestly think I wouldn't be able to sleep. And I was so racked with fear about the fact that Felix was going to be a boy. I was immediately like, oh my God, serial killers are all boys. I would drive down the street and see like boy hoodlums. So say if I had watched this adolescent show where this 13-year-old boy has killed this 13-year-old girl and everything around it, I would have just been like, ah. So I'm grateful to have watched it now, where I can make more actual, like, you know, just like thoughtful, wise choices and considerations and remember that my main job is to keep loving and my body and offering her regulation when I can, and doing that in proximity with my 2 boys. And that's my main, and allowing them to have a space to then co-regulate and regulate in my presence. And like, that's kind of my main foundational parenting strategy. And then above and beyond that, no phones for, I'm at least doing that wait till grade 8 thing, if not actually teenager year. And I'm not sure about social media, but definitely no time soon. Let's just say that. Because that's a theme of adolescence, is like the impact of social media on kiddos' brains. Anyway, to me, this all makes sense, but I apologize if it feels like it's a real rambler. These are all the things that have been bouncing around in my head, and they do all have this through line of like death and premature death and grief and pre-grief and fear of grieving, you know? And then circling back, so like the main thing that I ground myself in is I don't have to know all these answers to all these complex things. I don't have to like fix the world. I don't have to know the future in any way. I can't do any of those things. So I'm going to fire myself from those jobs. But what I can do is walk through the woods and say good morning to the trees, and do the same with the people I love and center those people in my lives. And so that's the lesson I'm taking from all of these different influences I've been interacting with recently. So, I always love to hear from you, Jamie. And you certainly are a human and your body and your spirit and everything that you share are one of those people in my life that I say hello to you and good morning to you, and I'm grateful for your role in my life as well.
Okay, I'm going to do my best with this. Because, of course, as I have learned to expect with this project and just with this friendship, with this relationship, the timing is always fascinating and perfect. And I just got a moment, found the right moment, once again out on a walk with my dog, to listen to your voice memo from a few days ago, and was just hit with a complex wave of grief for the first time in the last 24 hours since finding out some really subject matter appropriate news. I was on the phone with my dad yesterday, I found out that my cousin, I had two cousins total throughout my entire life. One older, one younger, both on my mom's side of the family. I found out yesterday on the phone with my dad that my older cousin Kevin has been missing since October. And that was the way that information was presented to me, was just like a kind of in passing sort of comment. Did you know Kevin has been missing since October? And I didn't know that. Nobody had told me. And as my dad unpacked the story further, which I'm not going to get into in this voice memo since it's for public consumption, it's clear that he's not alive anymore. And I don't know. I haven't. The thing about Kevin is that he lived with us for a couple of years after his mother died. My mom's oldest sister died from cancer when Kevin was 9, and he came to live with us because that was what his mother's wishes were. And so for a couple of years, Kevin was my best friend. And Kevin was complicated and traumatized and so sweet. And he had not just endured a premature death of his mother, at such a tender age, but also he had not ever known his father. It was a really complicated situation involving an extramarital affair and, a whole not being wanted thing. And he also was a survivor of childhood sexual abuse from an older male relative. And he wasn't doing well when he lived with us. And the experience that from ages like 7, kind of 8, he came to live with us shortly before I turned 8, but from like 8 to 10 for me, there was this like dual thing that I was experiencing where I knew, based on other people's words and just emotional reactions, I knew that the story that people had about Kevin was that Kevin was a problem, and that the problem that Kevin was too difficult for anybody to know what to do with, or to kind of even want to know what to do with. And to be totally honest with you, my parents did their best, and it just wasn't going well. So I could feel that at home and at church, which is a whole nother story for later in his adolescence, and the ways in which the youth pastor at the church that I grew up with specifically really failed Kevin. But my direct experience of him was that he was so sweet and so tender and very scared, but also brave, and we had so much fun, and he was like a built-in best their their father is my mother's first husband, and so I didn't quite understand the structure or, kind of concept of sorry, I had to switch the phone hand, of a blended family when I was younger. And so I didn't really understand why my siblings would go hang out with another family every other weekend. And when Kevin came along, it was like, oh, this guy sticks around and he's closer to my age. And our relationship became more complicated as we both got older. And like I mentioned, after a couple of years of things not really going well in our house, some decisions were made, and Kevin ended up kind of being bounced around to in between different relatives, and then some children's home situations. And this story kind of solidified itself, kind of the lore in the family of just like Kevin's a lost cause, Kevin's a problem, Kevin is just so many things. As he got older, maybe the unfortunately predictable story of started spending time with people who are as traumatized as he was, and he made choices in alignment with an attempt to belong. And I actually hadn't spoken to him in, I want to say maybe 10 years. So finding this out about him yesterday, it was really interesting because it happened in October. And I felt something in October, and I didn't know what it was. And I don't know. There's just finding this out yesterday put some energetic experiences into perspective. And something about listening to this voice memo that you just sent me, and these kind of like dual themes of premature death and this kind of additional theme, thought, idea of I don't know, the problem of boys, like the what do we do with the way that boys are in the world? I don't know. It's I don't know. It's hard to really put concrete thoughts to this. I think also the other fact that I am now a parent, and specifically a parent to two boys, my relationship to and my perspective of boys and masculinity and manhood has profoundly shifted in the last few years. And I just have such an intense and I would say ever widening tenderness for boys, and that I don't know, I just have such a clarity today in this moment around who Kevin was at his core, and the awareness of the ways in which so many people experienced him. So many people experienced him differently than who he was at his core. And there isn't really anything to do with any of that or any of this except just acknowledge it and name it and say that it belongs. And I think the last thing I'll say is kind of in alignment with this. Like, it's interesting. I loved hearing what you said about, like, if I had watched this show X number of years ago, I would have internalized it differently than, watching it now, and kind of recognizing that, you have the ability to take it in as media, but not take it in as like reality or just like fundamental, inevitable truth about humans, in a sense. And there was something you said earlier in your voice memo about how, like, when we have fear, like, we can't stop the fear. And I actually disagree. I actually believe we not only can stop the fear, but we are alive to learn how to. And it can't happen instantaneously. It can't happen immediately. It's a long-term process of learning how to choose a better feeling thought about the fear as it is presenting itself to you, learning how to choose a better story about the situation as it seems. And that, that happens over time, and is the product of increased intimacy with the body, increased somatic literacy, increased sovereignty and self-responsibility. And so I just wanted to kind of point that out, because it was interesting hearing you say you can't stop the fear, and then also a few minutes later hearing you tell a story about yourself and your own life where actually you did, and you have. And it wasn't in an instant, but through the, committed relationship with self and with body, and the commitment to sort of like the negotiation regarding fear, there has been a release of so much of that from your body, and from the memory, from the holding patterns that previously existed within you. And I, in the same way that I believe everything can be healed, this falls under the category of the everything, of like, I believe that we can get to a place in our relationship with ourselves and each other as people where we stop the fear before it even starts, within ourselves and what we perceive to be worthy of being afraid of in our experience. But most especially, we stop the fear in the direction of other people, who we so frequently don't understand and could never totally understand. And we choose a better story in the direction of the other, human being who might be presenting as intimidating, as dangerous, or as, unkind. And that doesn't mean we give people access to us in ways that don't feel safe. And we do still have the ability to choose our story about people 100% of the time. And there's a huge part of me that really wishes that the adults, it's both, right? Like, everyone did their best, I think, I hope. And there's such a huge part of me that wishes that the adults that were in the life of my cousin, my friend, sweet boy. I really wish that the adults around him had chosen to take greater responsibility for their nervous systems and their stories, and had looked at this little boy and then this teenager and then this young man as someone who was like hurting and in desperate need of confidence in his direction, and had chosen that posture towards him instead. And I don't know if anything would have been different, but this is what is. I hope that all of this makes sense, and I am really grateful to have this space again, both in this project and just in this relationship, to process these sorts of things with you. So I'm grateful for you, and I love you, and I hope that you are having a very beautiful Monday.
Hey, Jamie. Just listened to your voice memo, and I think I'm going to keep this one short because actually we're going to talk tomorrow and record another episode of the podcast. And if it feels right, we could talk more then. But I just wanted to say how sorry I am to hear about Kevin, and my heart was aching alongside of yours as you shared. And I'm so grateful to you that you did share with me and with everyone the part of Kevin's story that felt right to share. And gosh, yeah, not in that blamey way, of course, because that doesn't help, but just deep in the depth of grief, curiosity can arise of what could be different if we shift the stories. And yeah, I accept your invitation to consider that there's a way to shift away from the fear story completely, because it has already shifted so much in my own life, and what would have happened for Kevin, and who happened for a Kevin who's still becoming now, who hasn't become any sort of thing. And perhaps we just don't have to define in the way that we feel so inclined to define in these ways, and just cause so much harm, So I'm so sorry. And I'm grateful for you to share. And I feel honored that I am a person that you feel safe to share these hard things with. And I receive them and hold them for you and for Kevin and for your family. Yeah. And just naming that Kevin is more than any set of stories that any of us could tell about him. Because so often in a family, I'm aware of the family stories that seem to just cement people into one shape. But the brilliance of each human and their bodies and the infinite ways that they are cannot be defined by story. Any singular story, certainly. But I think it is beautiful that you have this story to add to the collection of who he was, about how sweet he was and how he was a constant to you in a time when the other things were not as constant. And so I'm glad to have that story shared to me and to those who listen. So thank you. All right, Jamie, just sending you so much love and gratitude, and I'll talk to you soon. This is Experiential Anatomy. Thanks for listening. I'm Joan Chan.
And I'm Jamie Lee Finch. Experiential Anatomy is co-hosted and created by us.
Amber Wyndham is the editor. Julia Wyndham is the supervising producer.
Senior producer is Elizabeth Wyndham. Aaron Beatty leads our community management.
Our theme music is Park Pier 3 by G's Guy.
If you have any thoughts, questions, or stories to share about this week's episode, email us at exanatomy@gmail.com.
Please follow, rate, and review on your favorite podcast platform. And remember to join us over at exanatomy.substack.com.
Experiential Anatomy is produced by Windhaven Productions.